and welcome to Arts Alive. This week we're focusing on paintings with the artworks of two artists born and raised in Liverpool, Peter Phillip and Frank Green. And to start with, we're at the Williamson Gallery here in Birkenhead with Colin Simpson. Hello, Colin.
Hello.
You are a curator here and manager of the gallery as well. You're currently showcasing this tremendous exhibition by Peter Phillip. It's in 2 rooms, but before talking about the artworks, maybe you can tell us a bit about Peter Phillip, the painter. Tell us who he is.
The reason we set up the exhibition for this year, because he's celebrating his 80th birthday this year. And he's an artist that I've been aware of since I first came here. But he's a very interesting artist because he's one of that small group of artists who lived a life and then almost as a midlife crisis, if you like, decided they wanted to be an artist. So at the age of 40, he gave up his job and became a full-time art student. So that was in 1975, and having gone through his degree and got a first-class honours degree, he then went into art teaching as well. So he's built the second half of his life, if you like, has been around art completely.
So in the first part, he didn't do any paintings or drawing
I
at
think
all?
he was always interested. I think as a teenager, he'd gone to night classes or sort of day release classes at the art college, but it wasn't seen as a career option at that point.
Yeah. And you were saying that he started studying in the 70s. That was, you were telling me, a time for photorealism. That's something we can see in his work. I mean, a part of his work that is behind us. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more how it influenced him.
Well, in the mid-70s, in Liverpool Art School, there were a couple of teachers, particularly Maurice Cockrell and John Baum, who were I don't know that it was quite photorealism in the sort of the American sense of it, but it was hyperrealism, if you like. And so they worked assiduously to produce work that was very, very accurate and based on sort of photographic reality. So Peter was going through Liverpool Art School as a student at that time and became interested and became influenced by the people that he was working with. And the reality as something that he's always worked very hard at. You can see that throughout his work, that he's very interested in creating scenes that are real to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you were saying he's influenced by his family as well. I mean, that's what we see in the paintings.
A lot of the paintings, he's taken sort of classical scenes and adapted them to modern life. So the painting that's behind us is actually based on sort of a stoning of St. Stephen, which is a sort of a biblical type story, but it is based in South Liverpool, looking across the Mersey towards Stanlow Oil Refinery, with one of his sons sitting on the car bonnet, with this scene going on in the background, which is a scene which sadly it could still be seen in various parts of not just Liverpool but all over the place. This sort of almost teenage brutality, if you like, but it's reflecting those sort of classical or biblical scenes and showing them in a contemporary light.
Yeah, and bringing this classical influence as well. There's another painting where you see his family playing cards, and that's something we've seen several times in history, in art history before.
The card play is a classical subject that's been done by Caravaggio, by Cézanne, even Beryl Cook, and a group of people playing around. It's a sort of a very easy composition, but there he's got his 3 sons and his wife. Put into this domestic situation, but harking back to art history as well.
Right, Colin, we're in front of this painting now. It's called Incident. You were telling me it's the biggest as well of the collection. Can you tell us a little bit how Peter worked on this?
It's a painting that Peter made in 1985, and it's based on a painting by Caravaggio that is one of his favourite painters. It's a painting in the cathedral in Valletta of the beheading of John the Baptist. So in the original, John the Baptist is forced onto the floor with somebody over his body with a knife ready to cut his head off, with the other figures ranged around. And what Peter has done is he's adapted the same poses of the figures and turned it into a contemporary incident in contemporary clothes. But it's very ambiguous what's going on in there, because you've got, again, the figure being forced onto the ground, somebody reaching out, and then somebody else taking a photograph of them. And exactly what the scenario is something that you have to make your own mind up about. The sort of the mannequins in the shop windows behind, they're sort of slightly sinister, sort of watching influence as well, even if they are in underwear. It's taken, because the poses of the figures are very dramatic, and you can't quite work out what's going on as soon as you move them into this contemporary context. The only thing that pins it to date really are, I guess, the style of the clothes to some extent, and the hairdressing. But apart from that, it could be today rather than 30 years ago. And it is the sort of thing, because often you're walking along the street and you see something happening and you're not always quite sure what's going on, are you? And you see people doing things and you don't know how to react to them. There's been quite a lot of talk, and particularly there was that Jake Gyllenhaal film, wasn't there, about sort of paparazzi crime chasing, if you like, where you get in, you take photographs of a scene before the police get there. You know, is that what's happening here? Who knows?
So we've been talking about the influences that that Peter Philip had. We're seeing a lot of Liverpool, obviously, that had a massive influence on him. We see the Picture House, we see Liverpool One, but before that, he already went to Liverpool One. What is Liverpool One? Is the Paradise Gardens series that we have just behind us. Maybe you can tell us a few words about this.
I think that Peter was particularly interested in these are watercolours of the car park that was at Paradise Gardens, that were done in the late 70s, 1978, 79. And I think that it was the irony of this multi-storey car park named Paradise Gardens that interested him, but also the nature of a multi-storey car park offers these sort of extreme contrasts of light and dark that you see in the paintings that he felt he was able to explore, and he was doing them in watercolour rather than in oils, which is quite interesting, because I think that a lot of the things were done. He was able to sketch on the spot and then work up things when he got back to his home. And
you think it's just because of the irony of the name that he decided to go? It's quite unusual to go in a car park to paint cars.
Well, they are unusual subjects. Certainly, it's not the sort of thing that everybody would have hit on. But he did this quite large series of them, and so I think it was particularly the contrasts of the light and dark that interested him. And when you get that, you get these very subdued colours. And even though the cars themselves are bright colours, when you see them in shadow, that's all subdued. You get these very dramatic silhouettes and the shapes that are thrown up by the contrasts. But I think, yes, the irony of the name was important. I did say to him that I thought it was a shame he hadn't done paintings of the gardens before the car park was built as well, because of course there's a whole series of paintings of the building of Liverpool One, which took place on that same site after the car park was demolished.
That's the thing, is that with Peter Philip, we kind of like travel through the years. It's a real witness of the changes of the city as well. I mean, from there to the building of Liverpool One, and he's documented like the whole construction of the building as well.
I think it's one of those things. I don't know that Liverpool is unique in this, but there are a number of artists who feel very devoted to the city and like to map its changes, if you like. So I think that the way the city changes and the way the city morphs in time is something that a lot of artists have appreciated and like to document.
Colin, Peter Philip is also a fantastic drawer. This is the second part of the exhibition that is based on Bestial series. That's how you called it. We've got plenty of pictures. Maybe you can tell us how he worked on this one.
He got interested in a bestiary. In medieval and Renaissance times, a bestiary would be a sort of a document of the animal kingdom, but a lot of the animals were made up, or they were invested with sort of almost magical powers, because most people never actually got to see these animals. And Peter was looking at making a new bestiary, but particularly looking at endangered species, because some of the species may not be there in the future, but particularly looking at animals in the environment that we mostly do see them, which is a caged environment in a zoo. And he did get some criticism for that, showing animals caged rather than sort of in the wild. But he's particularly focused on rhinoceroses and elephants, because I think they're the most interesting and most dramatic shapes, if you like, that animals have. He's particularly done these very large-scale drawings, because it gives him free rein to express the textures and the light and shade that you get on the animals.
And when did he make this? I mean, was it like later on during his life, or?
I think he started doing them in the late 70s when he'd graduated, but he's still doing them basically. So he did some prints and watercolors, but the larger scale drawings he's been doing over the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, because there are a couple of drawings as well where you see like rhinoceros with a man as well, and it looks like, well, when you start drawing, you try to work on the scales, obviously, between the animals and man as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that that particular one is based on a Renaissance manuscript of a sort of an anatomy textbook. But he likes playing with the shapes and saying that the textures, particularly of the animals, so that you get the contrast between the fur on a gorilla and the sort of the scaly skin on a rhinoceros, and the difference between African rhinoceros and Asian rhinoceros, and the sort of wrinkles on an elephant. He enjoys he relishes showing the textures up.
Philip retrospective exhibition is on display here at the Williamson Gallery until the 30th of August. And amongst the many painters that had an influence on his work is Frank Green, another great local artist to whom we've been chatting about his exhibition at St. George's Hall. Join us in part 2. Welcome back to Arts Alive. Since July the 4th, St. George's Hall is hosting a retrospective exhibition on local artist Frank Green. We went to the launch and had a chat with St. George's Hall manager Alan Smith and Frank Green himself to find out more about this amazing collection.
I've known Frank's work for a long time. He used to be based in the Albert Dock where I worked. And he's a long established Liverpool artist, painting for up to 50 years or plus. And the Hall has recently developed this space. It's only probably since 2012 that it's become stronger, and we've slowly but surely built up what the offer could be. But now we're in a position where we've got 7 strong galleries, which it's quite eclectic. We want a different program, be it Christmas Grotto or whatever. But recently we're getting to the level that we'd like to achieve in terms of quality of exhibitions and sheer scale of exhibitions. And Frank has been an ideal choice for this. The building has gone through a resurgence, having been closed since 1984 and then reopened in 2007. And Frank's work actually reflects Liverpool's change in dynamic, probably in that sort of period as well, and way before. From 1970 with the decline of the city and dereliction to 1981. And then suddenly, like the Hall, his work reflects the resurgence in the city and the confidence the city's got. So he covers that whole range of programme. And it's funny, Frank's the first person I've met where he actually said, do you have any more spaces? Because it's colossal, his body of work and his exhibition. So there's a real synergy between Frank's work and the Hall. And we've been alluding to Frank being Liverpool's Lowry, if you like. He paints scenes that are very familiar. People have a lot of strong affection towards him. He's well known. The work is very accessible, but it's like a very strong social comment. There might be political overtones. So he covers a lot of sort of areas that are very relevant to the Hall as well. But I think the exhibition takes the Hall's gallery ambitions to a whole new level. think over time he's built his style from getting a secondment to Italy for 1 year, which was fabulous, and I think he learnt a lot. But also over time changed from oil to pastiche to watercolour, which is really a strong genre or material or medium. And there's two strong themes that you have within the show. Definitely churches and definitely your road, your street. It's very familiar, but it's important because he shows whole roads being lost, churches being destroyed and left abandoned and derelict, and it's relevant to people. They can see it's their communities being destroyed, it's their communities being lost. It's a building that they've spent their whole life going to church or lived in that road, and then suddenly it's knocked down. So there is a social comment there in a very gentle way, but as you get familiar with his work, it gets stronger, and you can see he's got a real strong point to make. And it shows also most recently when he's taking commissions, the resurgence of Liverpool, the confidence Liverpool's getting back. So it is a very relevant and totally appropriate exhibition for the whole.
And you didn't tell me, but how many paintings do we have here?
Probably over 400 now. Frank, as I was saying, it's kind of like the Jaws line, you're going to need a bigger boat. When he came along, he said, have you got any more spaces? We've been doing exhibitions where we've not struggled to fill the spaces, but we can give it a lot of breadth for one work on one wall. As you can see, Frank decorates every possible space, and I love that approach. People like to see lots of different things, and if he's got this body of work that we can show, I think this is the great opportunity to do that.
And you were telling me as well earlier that these paintings, they're not for sale.
Frank actually is in a position where he buys some of his own works back, so it's very Lowry-esque in terms of the works are his. He does sell works, he has sold works, he's got works out there that obviously people own with great pride, but in recent years he's actually bought some works back, as far as he's told me. And it's a nice collection. You can get prints of them, you can get copies, and there are usual materials that you can buy of the works. But he's one of these people that has a strong affinity with what he paints. It's not for the sake of painting that he does it, although there's a great love and confidence and ability. But he paints scenes that matter to him and matter to the people that view them. So I think that's why he's held in such a strong affection with the people of Liverpool. Frank's done retrospectives before, and I think this is definitely the largest he's done, and definitely in the best venue, but I'm slightly biased. But I think if you get to see this, you'll get to know Frank Green, you'll get to know his work, and you can see it really spread out and spaced in a comfortable environment. It's huge, it's vast, and it's probably the first time he's been able to put real comfort and breadth in the works that he's got, and it's a real opportunity to see it in all its glory.
I started painting when I went to the College of Art in Liverpool when I was 17 in 1960, September the 12th, 1960. And the only thing that I knew that I wanted to do at that time was to draw. And I didn't know any artists, I didn't know anything about painting. And gradually over the years, developed sort of skills. And it's basically the drawing, the life drawings and things like that, which I was particularly interested in. But gradually, I started oil painting, and that was in probably 1962. And then after that, it was 1968, quite a long time later, that I started doing watercolours in Italy. And then gradually developed the watercolours in Liverpool as well. When I was at college, we used to have architecture lectures by a man called John Keats. And this was every Friday. And I used to work in a coffee bar during the week. And I was always tired on a Friday. So Friday afternoon came to the lecture theatre, and I always used to fall asleep. So I didn't learn anything about architecture. And it's strange really that I was worried that I would be slung out of college because I didn't have a folder of the lectures. And but it is strange that I've spent the whole of my working life now doing drawings of buildings and streets, and I still don't know many of the architectural terms.
Frank Green is especially known for depicting Liverpool cityscapes, a lot of his work representing famous and less-known buildings. Through his paintings and drawings, he has been witnessing and documenting the changes of the city for the past 40 years.
I think particularly in the 70s, there was such a huge programme of demolition in Liverpool, and moving people out of the different districts, the inner city mainly, And as a result, the churches were sort of left without congregations. The pubs were left without customers. The shops were sort of almost abandoned. And no business or church or shop, pub, anything like that, they can't survive without people. And in a way, the whole process has continued because of the massive supermarket building. And I think Liverpool has an embarrassment of shops. They don't know what to do with the shops. There's plenty of the buildings now which are old to me, well, not old to me, but were built when I was young, which, lots of them have been pulled down anyway. That's the estates. I've got pictures there of when they pulled the old houses down and then they built a new estate. Within 20 years they had to pull the new estate down because of the social problems.
The art of Frank Green follows a previous exhibition Frank has hosted about his work around Welsh builders and their contribution to the making of Liverpool, from which a book has been published.
I think what most people don't realise when they come to Liverpool, that virtually every road and street in Liverpool was built by Welshmen, and a huge number were. And in the book, The Welsh Builder on Merseyside, that lists all these Welsh builders. It's not clear all the time what particular streets they built, but I think that they left a definite mark on the architecture and the beautiful patternwork of bricks on the houses. Very often they've been obliterated by a £10 tin of paint in beautiful different coloured brickwork. So but underneath still there's the fabric. They can be cleaned, and I've seen houses, streets cleaned up. There's one right by Liverpool football ground called Skerries Road, which is cleaned up, and it's absolutely, the houses are really pristine. And I think very often people don't realise when they get a tin of paint and they put it all over the bricks, that they're ruining the appearance of the whole thing.
While the exhibition runs until the 31st of August, Frank will keep up drawing and painting our streets.
I've got drawings done of different roads, which some of them very close to the shop that I have in Anfield. And I've spent 40 years around there, never drawn some of these little streets, which is crazy. So I usually like to work very close to where I'm living or whatever it is. So these streets are a top priority before I snuff it.